This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Patty Daly.
Linda Swain in for Patty Daly this morning. Hope he's feeling better soon. We had quite an interesting conversation yesterday, so anything that was raised on yesterday's show and you want to weigh in, by all means, give us a call. In the meantime, lots to talk about today, and we're going to start with Bill C-63. And I'm going to start with a quote that was used in the Globe and Mail. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom to commit acts of hate, according to Mohammed Hashim, CEO of the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, in response to the long-awaited Online Harms Act, or Bill C-63. The bill will add a definition of hatred to the Criminal Code of Canada, raise the maximum punishment for 4 hate propaganda offences, create a new hate crime offence that would be applied to every other offence instead of just listing it as an aggravating factor during sentencing. Online platforms would have an overarching duty to act responsibly, make certain types of content inaccessible to protect children. Failure of platforms to comply would lead to fines of $10 million, and those who persistently ignore demands to obey the new law would face penalties of up to $25 million. Radio and television, who have to comply by broadcast standards, and print media must also adhere to laws to protect against libel and slander, including hate. So with freedom of speech comes great responsibility. No one has the freedom to spout vitriol and hate, harassment, or abuse against others. That's not freedom of speech. And in the end, I think we all know the difference in that. So why has the online world been so long to adhere to the basic rules by which mainstream regulated media must comply? We here in radio and television operate under the CRTC. Under Bill C-63, the federal government would create a regulator and a digital safety ombudsperson who would adjudicate on removing hateful material online. The question is, how will it be regulated? They're creating a regulator. How will this be regulated? Will it be self-regulated? Will it be complaint-driven? Those are the questions that I have as someone who has interest in this topic in a general sense. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. By all means, do give us a call. Speaking of broadcast media versus online platforms, you may have heard in the news this morning, Stingray, the parent company of VOCM, is joining with other independent broadcasters in calling on government intervention to help the radio industry in Canada. We recently saw mass layoffs, of course, affecting Bell Media and CBC as traditional media struggle with a loss of advertising to digital platforms. In addition to that, legislation introduced by the federal government to protect the content of news organizations has had the reverse effect, with Facebook blocking all Canadian news content and news organizations from its platform. That, of course, has made it more difficult for people to share content and for smaller organizations to tease their upcoming programming or editions. We recently saw, of course, with the Rec House Press, we were speaking with Renee Roy. That's the award-winning newspaper based in Port aux Basques that had to fold recently, moving to an online presence from a regular weekly paper. So some people might say, okay, online is the way to go, but consumers, of course, are reluctant to pay for online content. In commercial radio, access is free. You're listening to us now, and it's absolutely free. If you happen to have a radio or some form of listening device, you will get us, and we're not asking anything from you. Our revenue is generated, of course, by advertisers who want their product or services highlighted to listeners, and whether it be while people are driving in their vehicles or at work or at home, radio is that way to get at people in a kind of an immediate way. And we know that radio works. We see examples of it every single day, but many advertisers are moving their money to digital platforms, not all of which, of course, are local. And you may say, so what? But imagine a day when you're unable to listen to local voices telling their stories or keep local law and decision makers accountable for policies that affect you. Openline, for instance, it's been a stalwart. It's been a tradition here in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's a bit of an anomaly across many parts of Canada. There's all kinds of talk shows, but this one is special, if I do say so myself, having listened to it for many, many, many years. Just imagine now if you didn't have that opportunity to have your voice heard. It's a difficult and challenging time, particularly given global events when democratic vigilance is so important. We're seeing it all around us. And I'm just raising this as a general topic. If you have any thoughts on that, you're certainly welcome to give us a call. The Registered Nurses Union hosting a rally today at Confederation Building about the over-reliance on travel nurses. We heard from RNU President Yvette Coffey yesterday, of course, and while much of what the Globe and Mail reported a week or more ago are issues that have been raised repeatedly by the Nurses Union and others, now we have a much better idea of the numbers involved. That's $35 million over 5 months spent. Where it went, and in some cases, for what. And in some cases, we don't know where some of that money went. Well, the health minister says he's very concerned with the amount of money spent, but he stopped short yesterday when it comes to calling in the AG to examine what happened. Instead, he's calling in the Comptroller General to do an internal investigation, and he's offered assurances that those findings will be made public. If you have thoughts on that, you're welcome to give us a call. What do you think about the money spent on agency nurses? Nobody's saying that they're not needed in certain areas, and nobody's saying they don't do a good job. What we're saying is that it's creating perhaps a bigger problem than it's solving. And I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. The independent MHA for the Bay of Islands is calling on the Premier to get involved in the controversy surrounding redfish quotas in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. You heard Eddie Joyce on VOCM Openline yesterday saying harvesters and plant workers on the West Coast were shocked and blindsided when the federal minister announced that most of the quota was being allocated to the offshore fleet based in Nova Scotia. Joyce says the Premier intervened on behalf of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador when it came to the carbon tax, and he'd like to see similar advocacy on behalf of the West Coast fishing industry. Well, if the Premier's listening, I'd like to hear what he has to say about that as well. We're going to start the show this morning by going to the lines, and we're going to speak to the Mayor of Dover in beautiful Bonavista Bay, Tony Keats. Hello, Tony.
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I am wonderful, actually.
That's good. What brings you to us?
I'm just calling in this morning to let everyone know that I will be seeking the Liberal nomination for the District of Fogo Island, Cape Frills.
So you have some pretty heavy competition there for the nomination already.
Yeah, it's looking pretty healthy out this way for running for the Liberal Party. So it shows great interest. I think we all come on the same page as working for our residents and working for our communities. The other couple people that already came out are in the same line as I am. It's just one thing. I come to this with great experience. As you know, I've been the mayor now of this community for over 31 years plus, president of M&L, and I've been on the national board of FCM. To say I know the issues, it's an understatement. So with all the interest, people reaching out to me, I think right now, along with my family's support, my friends' support, and my community support, I think now is the time for me to put my hat in the ring.
What made you decide to do it?
Timing, I think, to be honest with you. It's now. I'm 57 years old. I'm to the point now in my life where I'm gonna try this. I want this. I want to work not only for my community. I'm used to working for other communities when I was president of M&L. I want to reach out into the other communities within the district and give them the support and work for those just the same way I work for my community, to be honest with you.
And what do you think you can bring to the table here? What do you think you can bring to the district? Well,
like I said, my experience speaks for itself, Linda. I've, I've been around the many tables now of provincial and federal governments to know how things work. I'm a go-getter. I get things done. That's who I am. One of the hardest thing I think that a lot of people got to deal with is saying what they are or what they bring to a table or what they see themselves as. And I get lots of people coming to me and speaking what I've done in the past. I just won the World Mayor Community Award, and the nominations, the overall support for that was phenomenal, and it just makes it gives me a sense of pride, and what I've been doing was good for my community and for the communities of our province in Canada.
Well, you have some big shoes to fill if you win the nod.
Linda, I think we all look at that. It's very emotional when we talk about Derek. Derek was a good friend. He was somebody who loved the district, who loved the people. His shoes will never be filled. Derek was somebody who everybody loved, and I got and I know the other candidates will never fill Derek's shoes, but we will make sure that we uphold what he stood for, and that is the love of the district and the love of the people.
Tony Keats, I appreciate your call this morning. Thanks very much.
No problem, Linda. You have a great day.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's a three-way race for the Liberal nomination now in the district of Fogo Cape Friels. Mike Tiller of New West Valley, Dana Blackmore, former EA of Derek Bragg, and now Tony Keats, Mayor of Dover. When we come back after the break, we're going to speak with the President and CEO of IOC, Mike McCann, about a new initiative they're taking to reduce carbon emissions, coming up right after this. And we're back on VOCM Open Line. We're going to start the show. I'm sorry. We've already started the show. We're going to go now to our next caller in the lineup, CEO of IOC Canada, Mike McCann. Hello.
Hello, and good morning, Linda, and thank you for having me.
Good morning, and welcome.
I'm calling in actually from a beautiful sunny Lab West morning here on day 2 of the Future of the Lab West Summit.
Beautiful. And, Labrador is the place to be in the winter. They just have such fabulous winters.
It is fantastic. And, in a couple of days, Kane's Quest actually starts off from site here, and IOC is a proud sponsor of that race event.
Will you get a chance to take it in?
I'm unfortunately going to have to head out of town, but we do have a number of our employees actually participating in it, so pretty exciting to see.
Oh, that is exciting for sure. Now, another exciting announcement was made yesterday, and that's regarding the decarbonization of operations there in Labrador West. What's the plan? What are you doing?
Well, I'll tell you what, yesterday was a fantastic event. On the opening day of the Future of Lab West Summit, we had the honor of having MP Yvonne Jones, as well as Premier Andrew Furey, to announce an important decarbonization project that IOC is taking on. And this is a project where the outcome will be actually reducing our emissions by 9%. Here in Lab West, which is really exciting. And for the listeners, just to put in context what that really means, that's equivalent to taking about 18,000 gas vehicles off the road each year. So Yvonne announced an $18 million investment in decarbonization of our boiler systems here at IOC, and it's coming out of the Carbon Economy Fund.
So what kind of work will be involved there? If the federal government is providing $18 million, I'm assuming that you're putting some of your own money on the line here as well. What will it involve? Well,
actually, it's a $50 million project, and the investment's going to go towards installing a 40-megawatt electric boiler, and this is to partially displace our heavy fuel oil boilers. So actually, we're electrifying part of our steam boiler systems and reducing our carbon footprint as we do that.
And will that result in added costs to the company? How will that compare to what you're doing now?
Well, we look at it from two fronts. It will reduce a bit of our costs, but more so, it's really setting ourselves up at IOC in terms of reducing our carbon footprint. so that we can produce some of the highest quality pellets and product into the steel industry, and also utilizing our high-grade pellets to reduce the carbon footprint of the steel industry. So we're reducing at home our carbon footprint and making products that actually reduce the carbon footprint of the steel industry.
So what's the scope of the work here? Will you have to hire on more people to do this, to make the change? How long will it take?
Yeah, it's actually in effect now. Foundations have been going in. In the construction phase, we're about 150 contractors on site. We'll have that wrapped up near the end of the year, and 2 new permanent roles within our organization to operate it.
So what will the people in Lab West notice? I guess they won't see those smokestacks anymore. Is that correct?
I don't know if they're going to notice too much more, but you look at 9% of our emissions, and we emit about 1 million tons a year. So we're on a journey here at IOC in terms of progressively reducing our carbon emissions and being a sustainable operation within the global footprint of reducing carbon dioxide to the environment. And we're pretty excited about that. And we're really excited about being a community member here within Lab West and working in partnership with the community around just not environmental issues like global climate change, but also employment and working with the community in terms of ensuring that we're part of the social fabric here.
And of course, mining is being looked towards now as a major player when it comes to further decarbonization, because we're going to need to mine a lot of those rare elements and the like to get more EVs on the road, ostensibly. So what kind of a role is IOC playing, I suppose, in that broader scale of meeting the need and the desire out there?
Well, that's an interesting question. And you look at the steel industry, and the steel industry globally emits about 8% of all total carbon dioxide emissions through their process. They use a lot of coal in the process. We're very fortunate here in Lab West. Our ore reserves are very high purity and high grade. What we're able to make is a product called direct reduction pellets, which go into steel making, where you reduce or eliminate the utilization of coal. If you go even further with our products, and as the steel industry matures into utilizing hydrogen, you can actually get to a net zero carbon steel. So how IOC can play a role is not only decarbonizing itself, but actually really contributing to the decarbonization of the steel industry. And when you look out to 2050, as we go through this energy transition, the demand for steel can be up to 40% higher than it is today. And how do we get a low-carbon steel into that green economy is critical, and we're really well placed here in Lab West to be a significant contributor to that.
When do you expect this particular project to be concluded?
We're looking at the end of this year, commissioning into next year. So we'll start having our results in 2025.
Mike McCann, so sorry you couldn't make the beginning of Kane's Quest, but glad that you're in the province for this important announcement and the focus on Labrador West, which is a real economic engine in this province. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Linda. And I just want to say that we're so pleased to be part of the community and the conversation that's going on with this summit. And it's a great forum to do that. And one last piece, it's a really big year for IOC. We've been part of this community in this region for a very long time. And in fact, this year marks our 70th anniversary. And we're so excited to be part of it and looking for the next 7 years.
70 years, imagine.
Yeah, it's not many mining companies across Canada that can say they've been operating for 70 years, and we're so fortunate to be part of this community. And again, how do we set ourselves up as we go through this green transition and be prosperous for the next 70 years?
Mike McCann, really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda.
All righty. Bye-bye. Your thoughts on that? Give us a call. We're going to go now to Dave Callahan. Hello, Dave.
Good morning. How are you this morning, Linda?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not bad at all, as usual, and enjoying your show and sitting back and reading the news early in the morning and seeing all kinds of interesting things. There's quite a few topics that I could choose this morning, but one that I guess I most often follow and talk about is the delivery of our health care in our province. And I see something very interesting this morning, and I find it most honorable by Minister Tom Osborne, who is, in my book, a very good fellow. And he is trying to, I guess, responsibly and openly look at the issue of travel nurses, and nobody needs to question the worth of them, but I guess they're questioning the cost of travel nurses that are, I guess, I don't know how many other hospitals, but I know certainly our hospital here in Stephenville have had quite a few of them. I was in hospital recently myself, and I'd say probably half of the nurses that attended to me, and by the way, very well, exceptional care, they were travel nurses. And the local nurses that we have that have chosen to stay here to support us in a permanent fashion in the delivery of our health care, I guess we're feeling somewhat slighted, as I do believe they should, because they're doing the exact same job, standing next to somebody who's making a lot more money, being provided to a public healthcare system by a private company. My question is, of course, now, first of all, nobody needs to wonder, do we need these travel nurses? Are they necessary? Yes, they are at this point in time. Looking aside from the cost, which seems to be exorbitant and probably a little more than you would expect, then these nurses have to be in the hospital to keep operating rooms open, emergency rooms, chronic care in the hospitals, and all the valuable jobs that nurses do.
I think the issue here, though, Dave, as you are probably very well aware, is that this $35 million paid over a 5-month period went to one single company.
Exactly.
For not just the nurses, but all the wraparound services that it was providing.
Yeah. It's absolutely astonishing that you can't imagine. Why is this able to be done? Never mind, we'll set the cost aside for a second. Obviously, there's something related to that. If a private company is able to come up with so many nurses and then charge them back to the province at huge, huge monies, I got a question. Who do we have in our Department of Health, from Eastern Health, the department itself, each individual health organization in each region? Why can't they do this job when a private company can? And I mean in terms of keeping our established nurses here happy, well compensated, and in a job situation where they do have enough in terms of support, there are enough nurses in the system that they can balance a bit of work and family life, because that's kind of the things that led up to the need and the push for travel nurses. I mean, it got to the point where opportunities elsewhere were far better, so our nurses left. We haven't been able to retain a lot of them that we've been graduating, this kind of thing. Well, there's a reason for that. If it is just money, I think that can be solved. Basically, not at any expense, not at any cost, but maybe if we trim the fat somewhere else within the administration of this huge monster that we call healthcare, we could afford to pay more for frontline that people elsewhere are paying. It's not rocket science, supply and demand. And what happens in this case is that if it's more attractive, and I know several Newfoundlanders who are travel nurses that they pass the other travel nurses in the airports. They're on their way to BC from Newfoundland. Then you get the crowd coming from over on the western side of Canada, coming this way. They're walking past each other in the airports. And I got to tell you, that only benefits, as you've alluded to, one situation, probably one company. Then I'd say when you look to see what's wrong with it, chase the money.
And of course, travel nurses often, they'll say that, travel nurses are essential because you have people who are not willing to live in more isolated or remote areas where healthcare is still desperately needed. So you have travel nurses who might be willing to go in for 3 or 6 months or whatever the case may be, make their money and go on again. But they're not getting the benefits that a nurse who is hired locally would get. They're not getting the health benefits. They're not getting the time, in lieu and all those different things, vacation time and all that sort of stuff. They sort of make their own hours, but they're not getting those benefits. What they're getting in exchange is a very high salary. And I would imagine that being a travel nurse is not easy because you're doing a lot of traveling.
Yep. Certainly is, and I mean those extra travel nurses coming here have extra expenses that, for the most part, they're not made responsible to have to pay for, I suppose. So it only adds to the additional cost of one nursing unit, every one of them. Now, very simple to just offer up complaints without probably having something in terms of a bit of a solve or something to add to this. And I don't like to do that. So what I'll add to this is something very, very simple. If it comes down to we're not able to recruit these nurses because elsewhere people are paying more for nurses and it makes it more attractive, like in any profession, to advance your own lot in life, you go there. If they had the same options for the money, if there was very close to, shall we say, that the playing fields weren't so grossly off, they wouldn't leave their home province. And I mean, we have lots of nurses that are graduating here on a regular basis that are Newfoundlanders, and they're not all seeking sandy beaches. So we should be pushing towards responsible recruitment and retention. I can assure you, I'll give you one example that has to do with Western Health. I myself avail of the services of the only nurse practitioner that we have for wound care. In Western Health, we only have one wound care specialist for all inpatient and outpatient for the entire region that Western Health serves. That service is always operating in deficit of time and capacity, always.
Of course it would be.
Yes.
Just imagine.
So, 2 local Newfoundlanders, one that was serving the job, very well, practicing for heightened skills and everything, had been treating me and others in this region. She basically, there was a lady who she had been replacing, so the position was basically, she was filling the position as a temp or whatever, but the permanent position belonged to a very fine lady from Corner Brook. The other lady was from the Northern Peninsula, and she wanted to stay on in that role. She didn't want to give it up, but when the one lady returns, they just automatically knocked her out of that role. She could have increased the capacity in this area of healthcare by 100%. Now, she's still working in the system somewhere, I would imagine, but she was 100% perfect for the job here in Newfoundland, not wanting to move away, homes built, and Western Health refused to extend and accept her and keep her on to have the lady that was returning, who we were glad to have come back, and the one that had been currently filling the role, whose skills had become very, very fine and very good and was serving the job very well. But they chose to not do it. I wrote a letter to the Minister of Health. I wrote a letter to our Premier. And I asked him, I said, in many other areas, just with the addition of one person, you could hardly double your capacity in that role. But here's an opportunity. They did what they should. I guess the Premier's office and Minister Osborne forwarded off the suggestion to Western Health, and it died. They could have doubled the capacity, cut the waiting times, not be burning out the current nurses and the professionals that they have with some extra capacity, with a Newfoundlander who was in their system and in their back pocket. one of the things that happens that I don't see both oars hitting the water with the way they treat our healthcare. I'll give you an example. There are 2 surgeons that are slated to come to Stephenville Hospital imminently, almost right now. But we do not have an anesthesiologist. Well, I would say that whoever's responsible for providing that position through Western Health or Eastern Health, so that we can avail of those 2 surgeons here in Stephenville in our hospital, because I'll tell you what's going to happen. They're going to come here, but they're going to be handed off to Corner Brook, where as surgeons, like the other surgeons in Corner Brook, they're going to have to apply for surgery room times for scheduling. They're going to have to be put on a waiting list to perform such scheduled surgeries while people wait and while 2 operating rooms will sit dormant in Stephenville. These are the things that are going on. Both oars are not hitting the water in terms of retention, first, recruitment, second, and a common sense approach to filling these jobs, because I can assure you that having known from being within the system myself, I can almost write the book on the quality of care that we receive from our nurses, and it's second to none. There's just not enough of them.
Dave Callahan, I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we hope to hear from you. You're listening to VOCM Open Line. And we're back. Linda Swain sitting in for Patty Daly. And you heard me mention off the top of the show that independent broadcasters across Canada, including Stingray, the parent company of VOCM, are joining together to call on government intervention to help Canada's radio industry. And that may sound self-serving on my part, but I think it speaks to a much larger issue and concern, and it's part of a conversation being had right across Canada right now. We're going to go now to the Senior Vice President of Brands and Content with Stingray Radio, Steve Jones. He joins me now. Hello, Steve.
Hello. Good morning, Linda.
How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on. How are things?
Great. So, I saw this release, and, I know we're part of the Stingray group, so some people may say, well, what are you talking about here? But it speaks to a much bigger issue, I believe, and that is the difficulty that many of the traditional broadcasters, both radio, television, and print media for that matter, are facing in this digital age.
I think you're 100% right. And we're really not looking here for the government to come to the table and fund our industry or give us handouts. This really is a question of common sense and asking the government of Canada to take very simple, very low friction, easy to implement steps that would incentivize advertisers in this country to invest in Canadian media over American and foreign media, including the biggest advertiser or very close to it, the Government of Canada itself. And the Government of Canada does not spend much of its marketing money on Canadian radio, TV, print, or even Canadian-owned digital outlets. They're spending it on Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and on big American platforms like Google and YouTube, and bypassing the very media that is the lifeblood of Canadian communities, large and small, all across the country.
And yet, if they want to get their messages out, they're very quick to call on local traditional media to get that message out.
Yeah, they are. And they know full well that local traditional media, as much maligned as it might be in the rumor mill, is still the number one source of entertainment and information for Canadians, far and beyond all other sources. Radio, TV, print, and digital, Canadian-owned, continue to be incredibly powerful voices. And it wasn't long ago when the Canadian radio industry specifically was nationally worth about $1.6 billion in annual advertising. That is coming close to being cut in half. It's dipping below $1 billion a year, and that's primarily because of advertisers moving their money to digital platforms. And most of those platforms, as we've covered, are owned by large American and multinational corporations. So what we're asking is really two very, very simple, very easy to execute things that would not require a lot of legislative red tape or not add a significant amount of burden to the monitoring process, is to say to Canadian businesses, we would like to offer you a tax incentive when you spend advertising money on Canadian radio, TV, print, and Canadian-owned digital outlets. Invest your money in Canada, and you get a tax break for it. That tax break doesn't go to us. That goes to them. We want to incentivize behavior that reinforces the landscape of Canadian media that helps our country thrive. And then secondarily, we'd like the Government of Canada itself to commit to investing 70% of their annual marketing money in Canadian media. And that, to me, just doesn't seem like a big ask. I mean, the government has a long history of incentivizing behavior to help the country, to help us thrive and succeed, and asking them to spend 70% of their marketing money on the very media that helps those communities grow seems like a very easy ask.
Have you received much of a response to date?
Yeah, so far reaction has been really, really supportive. I think everyone is kind of, as I said, common sense. I think people look at this and go, that makes sense. Once you realize that it's not broadcasters asking for the government to create a fund to hand out money to us to support us, we're not looking for that. What we're really looking for here is just incentivization of positive behavior and looking for the government to reflect the very own values that it says it has when it asks Canadian media to do certain things, right?
It makes me think of CanCon, you know what I mean? Because we have to adhere under CRTC regulations to CanCon, Canadian content on the radio. So, I mean, it made stars, arguably, of bands like Rush, and Streetheart and all of these things, are...
The Canadian music industry has a wonderful star system, in large part because of that kind of incentivization and regulation. We're obliged to play 35% minimum Canadian content at all of our radio stations, some of them higher. And we live up to that expectation and obligation because it supports the growth of our... Same kind of common sense on both sides.
We lost you there for a second, Steve. Sorry, there's some kind of a digital interruption there. But I think I take your point there. So it follows along those kinds of lines, I would imagine. And how important is it for those local voices and content to be heard?
It's incredibly important. Our company, while we're large and have 100 radio stations, we serve communities as big as Toronto and Vancouver. But we serve small communities all over Newfoundland and Labrador, all over Atlantic Canada, rural Alberta, and parts of the country where there are no other electronic media. And we live up to a lot of obligation to serve those communities as best we can. That used to be a lot easier when money was flowing more freely into Canadian advertising. But in 2024 and going forward, it is getting increasingly difficult. And we're seeing that with companies like Bell selling off 48 radio stations in smaller communities. We're seeing it where certain companies have shut down AM radio stations that are underperforming. We don't want to see that happen in our industry. We don't think that needs to happen in our industry. And we think with a little common sense cooperation from the government, we can find a path that doesn't cost taxpayers a single dime and does nothing but support our industry into the future.
So, where else does your advocacy go? Will there be trips to Ottawa?
Well, we'll see where the path takes us. And right now, as an individual, anyone can reach out to their MP and voice their support for this kind of process. It would mean a lot for anyone to reach out by email or phone or on social media to their MP and let them know that they want to support Canadian radio, TV, print, and digital journalism. And we're talking about digital too. We're really not talking about legacy media like radio and print and TV. We're talking about supporting Canadian media in all its forms and all its platforms. And anything that any individual can do to voice their support for that is helpful. We'll see if there's an opportunity to go to Ottawa. We really hope that the best outcome here is knowing that the government's in the budget process is to have them build this into their budget and just take this very simple step that would require very little in terms of legislation and just make this happen.
Steve Jones, I do appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Linda. Have a great day.
You too. Steve Jones is the Senior Vice President of Brands and Content with Stingray Radio. That's the parent company, of course, of VOCM. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we hope to speak with you. And we are back. We're going now to Des Sullivan, one of the friends of Cabot Merton. Hello, Des.
Hi, Diane. Nice to be with you this morning.
Linda Swain, I know you talk to Diane all the time.
You're right, Linda. I apologize.
Well, listen, it's okay. If anyone refers to me as Diane, I see that as a great compliment.
Well, look, I have another good news story then. In that case, this morning, I'm going to build on Steve Jones story, which is a really important one. The importance of professional journalism and the broader government and economic support for professional journalism. I'm going to talk very briefly, if I might, about independent public policy and evidence-based public policy. And I'm going to talk specifically about Kevin Martin, a gentleman who has been on your show, I guess, over the years many times, and was a passionate participant in public policy discussions, whether in relationship to Muskrat Falls but more particularly offshore oil and gas, the fishery, and other areas of public policy. And you may recall Cabot passed away untimely in late 22, and some friends of his, including myself and David Vardy and Doug Moores and a bunch of others like Diana Baird and Rob Strong and Fons Fagan, Ray Andrews got together and said, look, this is a guy who has made an enormous contribution to the province in the area of public policy. We have to make sure that his legacy is recognized and lives on. So that's really what I'd like to take 2 minutes of your time to talk about this morning, and give you a couple of perspectives, if I might. One thing I would say is that we started this initiative looking for funds to create an award at Memorial University for the purpose of research, funding research in public policy, with a goal of raising $100,000. And I'd like to tell you this morning that we have actually reached $200,000.
Oh, that's amazing. So obviously there's a lot of interest.
There was a lot of interest. We're, needless to say, very pleased. The original goal was to provide a grant to research students of around the $20,000 mark for 5 years. This will go to $20,000 a year for 10 years. It'll actually net out to the researcher, the successful applicant, at around 18 after administration fees. But it's in a range where the number is very meaningful, can be built on to existing or other sources of funding that groups of researchers or individuals can access, and who may be into larger projects and so forth. But whether on a small scale or a larger scale research project, this now is a very meaningful contribution to that effort. And we're very pleased that we've reached the $200,000 milestone. And I guess one of my functions this morning is to say to you that we wouldn't like to see this end just because we've doubled a milestone. There's still plenty of opportunity for people to contribute to public policy analysis in the province. You've spent the morning talking about healthcare, about journalism, about environmental issues. Well, all of these things arrive out of good, well-researched, independently arrived at public policy. It influences government, it influences institutions, it influences the public generally in their thinking about how we spend our collective dollars on services and programs, and on how we relate to each other in terms of government. And so, funding public policy research is something that doesn't always get as much discussion. Is not the sexiest subject in the world, but it's probably one of the most important.
Well, and you, Cabot Martin's legacy lay, as you already pointed out, in oil and gas and the fishery here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Will this award be handed out in any particular sector or area of focus?
Actually, it will have a very broad focus. The intent is that it will be available for applicants and I should say, first of all, the award program will be managed by the Harris Centre at Memorial University, which has a very long history now of participating in research work in the province, and in that regard, specifically the Cabot Martin award will accept applications in the area of whether social or economic research. Naturally, Cabot's own bent was in fisheries, agriculture, offshore oil and gas, but you can't. But and in that context, governance was an important feature of what he was all about. So there is the social and economic side, but there's also the governance side of public policy that will be important in this entire initiative. We often talk about speaking truth to power, and we had plenty of opportunity to do that during the Muskrat Falls saga, and Cabot was an important participant in that. But you can see that those are areas which need a lot of stimulation, need a lot of encouragement. Good research is something that must be funded, it must be fostered, and it takes groups like this perhaps to participate and get people to unleash their pocketbooks and contribute. And this is certainly, I think, a very, very important endeavor.
Des Sullivan, I'm really pleased that you were able to call us this morning. I thank you very much for your time.
Well, I'll just finish off by saying, if I might, Linda, that I won't call you Diane. I'll call you properly Linda now. But if people throughout the province who know Cabot Martin, who know all about him, want to acknowledge his important contribution over 50 years, they can still contribute by just Googling the Cabot Martin Award from Memorial University, and they'll come up with a website where they can do directly their contribution online, or they can just send a check off to Memorial University, P.O. Box 4200, and make sure that it's identified as a contribution to the Cabot Martin Award. And I think that this is a really, really good news story, and we hope that it continues to grow. And thanks for your time.
A wonderful legacy of a very extraordinary Newfoundlander. Des Sullivan, thank you.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. Just before the news break, we're going to go now to Bill, who has a snow clearing issue. What's up, Bill?
Oh, good morning, Linda. How are you?
Good.
Great. I live here in the West End off the Ruby Line.
Yeah.
And yesterday, thank God my daughter headed cheap. I had a medical appointment at the Babe Woods Medical Clinic. It took us over 1 hour to drive up to it. Never laid an eye on a plow anywhere. And when we came out of the clinic at 6 o'clock that night, we met 2 city plows coming out of St. John's, which I thought kind of late, isn't it, to plow the road now?
You're absolutely right. Yesterday's snowfall, I think, took a lot of people by surprise, but it became clear, early in the afternoon that it wasn't letting up, and that snowfall was pretty extraordinary. I mean, I was on Kenmount Road last night, and it was not good driving.
You know what? I fully understand what you went through. But to me, whoever's in charge of dispatching the salt trucks and plow trucks should have had a handle on it. Not wait till 6 o'clock at night when we met the traffic coming back to the Ruby line, bumper to bumper, going to, say, Bay Bulls or Trapassi, and they had nothing plowing ahead of them.
And the evening commute as well, when everybody's on the road.
Exactly. So I just thought I'd voice my 2 cents, and I appreciate your time.
Bill, thank you for raising that. I'd like to hear what others have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. Yeah, what did you think of the snow clearing yesterday during that, unexpected amount of snowfall that we received? I'd like to hear what you have to say. We're up to news time now with Brian Medore. You're listening to VOCM Open Line. And we are back. We're going to go now to the Secretary-Treasurer of the FFAW, Jason Spingle. Hello, Jason.
Good morning, Linda.
How are you this morning?
Pretty good. Lots of snow here. I was out of town for a couple of weeks and came back to the reports were true. There's certainly quite a bit of snow around. But anyway, used to that.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jason, you were part of a demonstration recently on the West Coast. And yesterday we heard from independent MHA Eddie Joyce, who's calling on the Premier to intervene when it comes to this redfish allocation.
Well, we're certainly pleased to hear more of our politicians speaking out. I think as they look at this issue, Linda, they see, Mr. Joyce represents the Bay of Islands there, and he's certainly looking at this and seeing what a significant opportunity this would be, or hopefully will be, for his area, the people in his area directly, with the plant there in Benoit's Cove, for example, that would be able to buy and process this resource. So we're very, very, very happy that pleased to see more politicians coming out, as they should be. And, we know the Premier is fully aware of this. Jerry Byrne as well has spoken out very, very strong, and we appreciate that on this issue. So, we're going to need everyone pulling together here because, what we need is the right decision made here. And so there was a decision made that certainly wasn't very favorable for the owner-operators, the people directly independent, the harvesters with boats, the plants, that are throughout the Gulf, within the Gulf here, because that's what we're talking about, the resource within the Gulf of St. Lawrence. But the minister did say that it was a minimum quota of 25,000 tons. She can allocate more, and that's what we need. We need her to make a decision. We have a redfish advisory in Halifax next week. That's going to be a big meeting. We'll certainly be there with our representatives, and our scientist, Dr. Aaron Carruthers, is going as well to present some of the work we've done. And we need a decision shortly after that meeting that's going to grant a significant amount of quota to the owner-operators in certainly on the West Coast, Northern Peninsula, and in Quebec and New Brunswick that have the boats tied onto the wharf that basically have very little to fish now because of the collapse in the shrimp resource that carried them and their communities for decades, and now it's been decimated in large part due to the redfish boom. So there's a lot there, but there's solutions here and we need them.
Well, the big theme that everybody discussed when around the time of the cod moratorium, of course, was the whole notion of mismanagement. The federal government mismanaged the resource, and that led to the eventual collapse of what was the lifeblood of Newfoundland and Labrador for many, many decades. And Jerry Byrne has raised this suggestion again that, we're looking at the same kind of mismanagement when these, what seems like political decisions are made in management of a very important resource. And we're only just now seeing the reopening of the redfish fishery, and a lot of people have to rely on that fishery for their livelihood. So, do you agree with that concept that the way in which this is being rolled out is actually a form of mismanagement because it creates a bigger, desire or reliance on this resource?
Certainly would agree with what Minister Byrne has outlined in that context. And, again, it's also the conservation aspect because, we have to do this fishery differently. We have over almost 600 harvesters on the west coast of Newfoundland alone that depend on the Atlantic halibut fishery. That's what we've been doing over the past 3 or 4 years because we know we had to do it differently, is testing areas and gears and depths and all these aspects to minimize Atlantic halibut bycatch so we can have a sustainable fishery. And certainly an element there, right? I just want to highlight as well that I attended a demonstration. I don't know if most people would have saw it on the news or heard tell there last week, where I attended with 5 of our committee members, harvesters from the Northern Peninsula and, the 4-hour fleet in Gaspé, Quebec. And we had an excellent at Minister Laboutier's regional office there in Grand Riviere, Quebec. And, what I would say is driving is I've attended many meetings in Rimouski. It was the first time I drove around the loop on the Gaspé Peninsula, and I kept saying how much it reminded us of driving the Northern Peninsula, for example. You have a few bigger centers, but it's mostly communities. And we went to the ports there in Fox River, and we also then the second day we went down and visited Shippigan and Caracat, talked to harvesters there. Again, I want to repeat, and that's a point again, that Minister Byrne has pointed out, is that the plants are there, the boats are there, the expertise are this. That's the other element. This doesn't require any major investment, in the context of the boats that are ready to go fishing. Now, we also do need a buyback because we know that there's going to be a transition. We're not going to replace shrimp in the short term, but we want, what we're talking about is a future for the west coast of Newfoundland, the Northern Peninsula, the Gaspé Peninsula, and the Caracat area, Shippigan area, for example, that's so important, to our, I would say, our economics and our culture out here in the east. So, that decision, we need some short-term investment, and we need that decision. We need that quota to be able to move forward here, and we're going to keep fighting until we get it. So, what
do you suppose is at play here? Because, I've heard many in the industry say they were blindsided by this. FFAW President Greg Pretty called this a punch in the guts, simply didn't see it coming. What do you think was behind this?
I honestly, can't speculate other than to say it just seems like a totally unjust decision. And also, since that time, and I think that's another important point, in 1977, Romeo LeBlanc, considered the greatest Minister of Fisheries and a Liberal cabinet minister at that time, allocated the first 30,000 tons of redfish in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, in Unit 1, and that's what we're basically referring to here, to the inshore owner-operators. And he gave the offshore, what was called the offshore at the time, even though they were bringing the fish into the plants in Burgeo and also in PEI and in the Magdalen Islands, for example, they were bringing the fish in there, so it wasn't being processed on board. So that's they gave it to the inshore, and then gave those other offshore companies resources in the north, which they've really built their, because this definition of offshore is misunderstood in a large context. There's been a new offshore with factory freezers, and we don't need to invest in factory freezers to have a profitable and sustainable fishery in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. We're only talking about a few hours from shore. as our chairperson Rain Ginn just said, is we're fishing in a big river, and compared to the North Atlantic, and all due respect, it really is. You're not that far from the resource in any context. So, like I say, we have that meeting next week in Halifax. It's going to be. Well, certainly we'll be there to put all our points forward, and we're going to depend on our DFO and our politicians to get this right here and give us an opportunity for a renewed future here in west coast of Newfoundland, Northern Peninsula, and other parts of the Gulf.
Jason Spingle, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, and look forward to talking to you again.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we hope to speak with you. And we're back. We're going now to Brian War. You're on the air. Hello, Brian.
Hi, good morning, Linda.
So you're stepping down.
I am. I'd rather call it just a change in my career, but yes, I've come to the decision that. After, I guess I had 99 months, Linda, 8 years and 3 months as a very proud member of Premier Fury's government and a proud MHA for the District of Baber Green Bay. There's an opportunity presented itself, Linda. I really wasn't looking at this. But the opportunity presented itself a couple of weeks ago, and I, as I said yesterday. To media folks that I had an opportunity to chat with, for the first time in my life, my career, that I ever did out a resume to send to the business who offered this opportunity to me. And anyway, I got shortlisted for an interview and ended up getting a letter of offer last week. So I was really hesitant about the opportunities that were going to become available for me to run in the next upcoming provincial election. I had committed to my family that this would probably be my last run, and I talked about the 3 boxes that I needed to check off, Linda, and those boxes were my health and support from my family, and whether I felt I was making a contribution to the folks that I represented. And that really meant that I still enjoy my work. Linda, I love my work. I really do. I work hard at my health. Most people know me. Most people who do know me know that I'm in the gym 5 o'clock most mornings, and I keep myself in good trim and try to look after my health. But really, it was my support from my family, and they've given me again 99 months of continuous support, Linda, and it's time for me to give back. And so we had an opportunity to sit down as a family, discuss this opportunity even before I applied for it, and I sort of got the green light from the family that this is the direction that we need to go in. I have my wife Judy, who has been a registered nurse for over 40 years, retired some time ago, and our 2 daughters and their families both live in Springdale, my hometown, and so it's while it's sad, it's exciting as well, Linda.
And you're no stranger to reinventing yourself.
No, I've like I said, I sat at the company that I will take up employment with is Castle Building Centres Group Limited, and they are a national buying group, and I had the opportunity to be their business development manager, looking after I think they got somewhere between 40 and 50 locations here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So, I'm still going to have a challenge. I'm still got to do some travel, but it will provide me with more time with my family. As you know, the life of an MHA, especially for me, I travel just about 6 hours from Springdale to be in here when the House of Assembly is sitting. And certainly when it's not, I got a district of, I think we're down to 40 communities now. We've resettled some, including Little Bay Islands and Snooks Arm. But it's been a busy life, and on my weekends, Linda, there's always events to attend to, so I don't get too much time to spend home with my family, and I really missed that, to be honest.
Well, Brian, I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much. I don't know if you heard Helen Conway Ottenheimer yesterday, but she had nothing but good things to say about you yesterday.
Listen, Linda, I mean, I have, I've been blessed with great colleagues, and certainly within government, and my own caucus and premier, and certainly members across the way as well. And it's all about respect. I mean, I show respect, and I receive it in the same manner, and that's who I am. I've been very, very respectful, and as my position of deputy speaker, Linda, it's difficult to get riled up in the debate, and all of a sudden you're on the government side, and you're part of the government team, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting in the speaker's chair when he needs to attend to duties in his office. I sit in the speaker's chair, and I have to see things nonpartisan, and it's a very hard transition now. If you think about what I got to do, maybe within 1 minute of getting a nod from the speaker, I'm in his chair, and now I have to see things nonpartisan. And I think most of the folks in the House of Assembly on both sides know that I pride myself on fairness, and obviously that's where I probably earn some of the respect. But Linda, I really again want to thank especially my family, folks from my district, the Bayver Green Bay, my colleagues in the House of Assembly, and former Premier Ball. My Premier today, Premier Fury, my CA, Linda, if you give me just a minute, I just want to talk about my constituent assistant back in Bayver Green Bay. She's at the office in Springdale. Her name's Kathleen Hines, and she's been with me since day one. And I just want to assure the residents in my district that Kathleen's going to be in the office for up to another 3+ months, and she's there to to discuss your issues and obviously do work on behalf of our office. And I just want to give a shout out to the public service as well. I have been blessed. I've had the opportunity to sit as Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development, as well as the Minister of Children, Senior Social Development, Newfoundland Labrador Housing Corporation, and the Minister responsible for the status of persons with disabilities. And I work with two excellent departments. And I can't say enough about the public service. They are what makes this place tick. And, I certainly want to throw a bouquet to them and thank them for their friendships and their hard work.
Brian War, all the best in your future endeavors, as they say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda, and it's been a pleasure.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. That's Brian War stepping down as MHA for Bayvert Green Bay. We're going to go now to Lisa Slaney on the Burin Peninsula. Hello, Lisa.
Good morning, Linda. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Linda, I just wanted to speak a little bit about something that's a little bit different for me, I suppose, regarding not my work-related topics, but something as a resident of the province. We recently moved to Spanish Room from Marystown. So Spanish Room is my husband's hometown. So we moved there in September. And in September, I took pictures of the deplorable road conditions that were in Spanish Room. I think I took about, maybe 30, 40 pictures, and I had sent them to Minister Abbott. And I'm sure there's other stories all around the province in terms of, how bad the roads and things are. But there's literally more potholes than there is pavements in this community, and a lot of elderly people living there. And I just thought it was horrible that and the conditions that were there that people, were dealing with, and that hadn't been paved or any really road work done in 31 years. So Anyway, so I sent an email and these pictures to Minister Abbott. I received no reply. I emailed again asking for an update, no reply. So February the 13th, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure put out a call to the public on highway improvement projects to be considered for 2024-2025. So it was a little bit puzzling first, but I thought, well, it's like everything. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. Because it really felt as though it was a contest and that the government was somehow, playing communities off of each other to, vie for pavement for the coming year or road work for the coming year and future years. So I guess my question is, where are the provincial engineers, that would make recommendations to the department with regards to, road infrastructure in the province? When the government comes out, and I appreciate the fact, that government is asking individuals for input, but at the same time, it feels as though there's a contest happening here now, within Newfoundland and Labrador. So if you didn't put in, a letter and send pictures, are you included? How is this going to be evaluated? Like, is it because you're the biggest municipality? Because, Spanish Room and Rock Harbour, we kind of came together, and as LSDs, we made a submission yesterday of 77 letters of residents from both communities, and probably more that I'm not aware of, and pictures. So, my question to the department, and especially to the minister, is, how is this going to be evaluated? Who wins the colouring contest? Because you're not, if your own employees, your own engineers, the people who do the maintenance on these roads, are supposed to do the maintenance on these roads, are not recommending to you what needs to be done, and you are coming and asking the public for input in what gets considered, well, then you need to start being a little bit more transparent with us of how this is going to be evaluated. Is it the best letter? Is it, the number of potholes? Is it, where you live? Is it if your MHA sits on the government side? How is this evaluated?
Is it the number of complaints you receive? Like you say, it comes down to a popularity contest almost.
Yeah, and you're vetting people against each other, communities against each other, because everybody's in need, I suppose, in some regard, but how are you evaluating this, and where are your employees that are not there? I mean, I sat on municipal government for 4 years, and I know from experience that you have X number of dollars to work with. You have engineers that are telling you what has to be done, what sections of road are worse and things like that. So I'm really, I don't know, I'm really torn, because I appreciate the fact that you're saying, tell us, but shouldn't they already know this?
Lisa, you're raising some excellent points here, and I'd like to hear, some of the thoughts that went into that, and what they intend to do with the information received. And what if, for instance, you have an LSD, for instance, where there is a need, but for whatever reason, people may not feel compelled to write in or.
Exactly, right. I followed yesterday going home from work. I followed a family member of ours, and he has a wife who's ill, and like every bump in the road is life-threatening to her because the type of illness she has, she can't be operated on, and it's extreme pain for her to drive over this road. And God love her husband. I mean, he was driving probably 10 kilometers, and if you were behind him, you would think he was drunk. It was just, the way that you would have to maneuver to actually try to provide a little bit of comfort to his wife going down, that road. My heart broke for them yesterday to see, how he had to drive to get her home without being, in too much pain. So, and I'm sure there's stories all over the province. I'm positive there are, but again, how are you evaluating this? And this contest, it's what it feels like. Who tells the best story? Who wrote the best letter? Who sent the best pictures? What is it? Tell us.
Lisa Slaney, I appreciate your call this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. You take care and have a good day.
All right. Bye-bye. I'd like to hear what others have to say about the points she raises. Excellent points. By all means, let's hear from you. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to hear about the case involving... oh my goodness, his first name escapes me, Snellgrove. We'll hear more about that when we come back after the break. And we are back. We are going to go now to Jen Dion on line 1. Hello, Jen.
Good morning, Linda. I want to start by just addressing real quick. You indicated when we threw to the break to discuss that we were going to discuss the case against Douglas Snellgrove. Of course, it's not a case anymore. It's a conviction. He was convicted of raping Jane Doe. So I just want to make sure that that is clear.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I know that as every woman in this province does, how serious the journey has been for Jane Doe, who was raped by RNC officer in uniform Douglas Snellgrove. And the reason I've called in today is because her journey, well, it will never be over, but the legal quest for justice continues. And for the listeners, if anyone is not aware, it was over 7 years ago, it came to light that an RNC officer in uniform on duty raped a young woman who he escorted to her home. And the details of the case have been discussed extensively. There were not one, not two, but in 7 years there have been 3 trials to bring the perpetrator to justice. There was finally a conviction, and last summer he was released from prison pending outcome of an appeal to the Supreme Court. So he has been free since last summer, despite the conviction. And this Thursday, on the last day of the month, the Supreme Court is expected to announce, to render its judgment on his appeal. And as I understand it, in my limited capacity, I'm not a lawyer, but if his appeal is granted, he will be free. And if it is not, he will go back to jail. And if he is freed, there may in fact have to be a 4th trial. So the reason I called, Linda, was because this is so upsetting for everyone to think how hard it must be for one woman to find justice for something so heinous and so violent. And I know that many of your listeners feel the same way and have, for many years and months now, been tutting away about the pain that Jane Doe must be going under. But there is one way we can be brave enough to show our support. And by showing your support for Jane Doe on social media, this was a campaign created not by me, by another supporter. And all it is a black square that says #support for Jane Doe. So she knows that she is not alone, that she knows that there are people out there who feel for her and who thank her for coming forward and being brave enough to see this through unimaginable amounts of effort over 3 trials, and who knows what will still be required. And I see that the profile pictures of women that I know are changing today. Everybody is starting to put their black square out there. But I wanted to call today because Open Line has such a reach to so many people in the province. And I encourage you, especially if you are a man, to consider showing your support for Jane Doe over the next couple of days on social media. Because if you do this, you're not anti-police, you are anti-violence against women. And in this small way, if the men start to show up in the same way that the women do, we're truly going to know that violence against women is wrong. And people will start to see your support, and they'll start to ask about the case if they don't already know. I mean, this happened 7 years ago. I discussed it with some of my staff today, and they did not know the details of the case. But it's a major incident, a major turning point in Newfoundland and Labrador where we can say this is wrong, and we know things need to change, and we support Jane Doe.
This is one 7-year journey, but is the bigger concern here that this has a dampening effect for, God forbid, anyone who encounters sexual violence in the future?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We see it on our Law and Order episodes all the time, you know. But it's happening right here in our communities. This happened in the East End of St. John's. You know, this was a basement apartment of a young woman who was in town trying to make her way and had gone out for a good night and then just had the unimaginable happen to her. It's everywhere. And if someone who can be so horribly hurt has to go through all of this for justice the next time it happens, and it does happen, we all know it. You know, we have to show our support so that things start to change.
Jen Dion, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. And VOCM's Brian Callahan tells me that this Thursday is the decision on whether the court will actually hear the appeal, not a ruling on the appeal itself. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we hope to hear from you. And we are back. We're going now to Eugene Nippert. Hello, Eugene.
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Wonderful show, Linda. And first of all, congratulations on a milestone of all these years with VOCM.
Thank you.
How many years, Linda?
35. Thanks for pointing it out, Eugene.
35 years. Yes, I know I've heard your voice many years ago. For many years. Yeah, well, congratulations. And it's always good to hear you, Linda. So the reason why I'm calling this morning, nothing new for me. Since 2018, we formed a group, the Concerned Citizens Advocacy Group on the air ambulance in the province, and it all started from on Fogo Island, was trying to get the air ambulances at Fogo Island, and then at least, if not, we have them in Gander when the emergency from Fogo Island would arrive in Gander by ferry, and Harbour Britain, and the list goes on, all these places. Now, I would give up on this issue, Linda, but I don't see how I can, because the public is saying, keep fighting, Eugene. It's making sense. The councils, whether it's the town council of Gander, Lewisburg, Fogo Island, Harbour Britain, or wherever, they've been supporting us, saying, listen, we should have air ambulances based in central Newfoundland, closer to the patient. And if I give up, then Eastern Eld and the bureaucracy in the system would win. over the people that's there waiting for an air ambulance, plus crisscrossing the province, costing the taxpayers millions of unnecessary dollars when they should be closer to the patient. And I can go into examples of patients that have suffered, and we have actually in Labrador have people that have died waiting for an air ambulance, and it's unnecessary, and it's not good enough. So do I give up? Do the concerned citizens give up? No, I don't think we should. I am, like the past minister of health is on side with this, agree 100% ever since 2018. The Premier is on side with this. And now, from what I gather, Minister Osborne is on side with this. We should have the air ambulance close to the patient, but still it's not happening. So 95% of our air ambulances now, Linda, is originating from St. John's, traveling to as far as Wabush. And why should that be happening? They say they come up with scenarios like, well, what about the medical personnel? Our medical personnel is on the Avalon. Well, we can have these medical personnel in Gander or anywhere else, not only in St. John's, because actually one of the private operators, Linda, went on and tested the waters, see if there was any interest in this medical personnel that we need for your ambulance, and they had over 50 applicants. And I'm sure today, like the travel nurses, they're having a demonstration today at the Confederation Building, where it's a big concern. If you put that same scenario out today for the medical personnel for air ambulance, you'll be flooded with applicants. So that's only an excuse. It's controlled on the Avalon Eastern Health and the bureaucracy in the system, because if the Premier agrees with it, and if the Minister agrees with it, and so why isn't it happening? So it's ridiculous. Patients are suffering, and it's unnecessary. And like I said, again, repeat myself, it's costing the taxpayers, because these retainers in the system are paid by the commoners also, and it's costing the taxpayers millions of unnecessary dollars, and the patient is there waiting for the air ambulance. And I just had an example of a friend of mine that from Fogo Island that was in Gander, and they had to wait for an air ambulance to come from St. John's, when we got two in the system right now that's from Gander, but they won't base them in Gander. They got to base them on the Avalon, where 75% of the population lives that don't need it. It doesn't make sense to anyone. Why is it happening? It got to change, Linda.
Eugene, I'm glad you are continuing to bang the drum on this. I'd like to hear what others have to say. Thank you very much.
Yes, and I would too, Linda. Hopefully people can speak up, because, if we need more voices like myself and Dave Callahan or whoever that's fighting this issue, and the mayor of Gander or whoever. We need more voices. This got to get done. We can't let this happen. The RFP is going to be closed and starting now the 1st of April. They're going to finalize things the 1st of April. So we got to get this done before the 1st of April. We got to accomplish what we've been fighting for since 2018. Thank you, Linda. Always appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day, Linda. Bye-bye.
Right, bye. We're going to go now to Charlie. You're on the air. Hi, Charlie.
Oh, good day, Linda. Grocery prices. Can we talk that for a while?
Sure.
I was watching a Fifth Estate on this last week, I think. I've often wondered how it goes from the supplier getting a very low price and the consumer in the supermarket paying through the sky, right? And they explained this very well, I thought. Basically, the suppliers, farmers and so on, are at the mercy of the corporations getting the product on the shelves and so on, and all the stuff they've got to do they're responsible for if it doesn't sell, and on and on. So in the end product, who's making the money would be the Gale and Weston types. By the way, his name came up again. I'll mention him in a little while. And I would say this from the example in Britain, where the supermarket chains, the large corporations, have to sign a code of conduct regarding their dealings with suppliers and that. And they appointed an enforcer in Britain to make sure that they obeyed this code of conduct, and prices leveled off. I would say here in Canada, they talked about a code of conduct that would be voluntary, and Galen Weston ended up not signing that. His argument was it'll be harder on the consumers, which was kind of funny. But anyway, I would suggest that if the Conservatives and Liberals are interested in getting in next election, why don't they bring in that code of conduct and do as Britain did and enforce it? And perhaps we can get a handle on this rather than leaving it to these people to do this voluntarily. I don't know if you want to comment, but to me, it seems like our governments here won't take the necessary steps. They'll talk about it, they'll do press conferences and so on, but why not take action like they took in Britain? You want to say anything on that?
No, that's an interesting point, and I'd like to hear what others have to say. Now, you wanted to talk about wind energy as well.
Yes, about a year or so ago when a lot of us were on radio concerning the project, the feasibility of it, especially financially, couldn't see how it could make money. I had read several articles, some from the Halifax Examiner on that, because they were looking at the thing up there. I was talking to a guy yesterday who was really up on this. I won't mention his name on the air. And he referred me to a couple of articles, and I'd like to mention one that backs up what we were talking about a year or two ago. The cost of green hydrogen is 3 to 6 times as expensive as the grey hydrogen, which is used about 98% all over the world. And what a lot of us are wondering, how in the heck, and then excuse me, sorry, Lynn, they're not giving us any information on how much the Germans are willing to pay for this. To produce that, not only if it was used locally, which would make more sense, but if it's being shipped across the Atlantic. So do we expect the German consumer is going to pay double or triple what they're paying for energy now? The guy in this article calls it magical thinking if we think we can send that abroad and make it pay. And his argument is, and of others that I read, the only way this can be profitable is enormous subsidies from the taxpayer, from the federal government. And no doubt they'll try to involve the provincial government as well at some point. So there's a lot of questions regarding this. Why don't they tell us how much it is going to take to produce this product, what the end price would be, what they expect to get for it? You'll notice they're not talking about that at all.
Well, I suppose that's part of the, because these are all private companies that are putting this together. So, I mean, that's... And ostensibly, they're not using any government funds till now. They are getting access to Crown land, and that footprint is going to be significant. Just wait till these things start going up on the landscape.
Well, actually, they are getting money. They are getting big subsidies from the federal government who's promoting this with them. Not the province, but the feds are, right? But I agree with you on that. And the other question is... they have to link into the grid, and you've got 5 companies there. Where is that energy coming from when they need to go to the grid? This is not being answered either. So there's so many questions up in the air. This guy, by the way, if anybody's interested in this article, the reality of clean hydrogen, and the guy's name is Glasser. I'm trying to find it there now, but anyway, I can't see it. Anyway, you can Google that to find out some things about this. So it seems to me we're going to have all this land torn up, and we're buying a pig in a poke. They're not answering questions. These people. These committees on the West Coast who are trying to get answers can't get them, and it seems like nobody else can. So how they can make a profit, it's beyond me. I don't know why they wouldn't be producing this stuff over in Sweden and Norway, which is very close to Germany, if it's such a feasible type project, right?
Charlie, interesting questions. I'm glad you raised them, and many others are seeking out the same kinds of answers. Thanks for your call this morning.
Okay, Linda. Thank you.
Bye-bye. We're up to news time now with Alison King. This is VOCM Open Line. Heading into the last hour of the show. Now is your opportunity to give us a call.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
And we're back, and we just received a really interesting email. Earlier in the show, we were talking about some of the systemic issues that may restrict recruitment and retention of nurses in the public system, leaving government more reliant, of course, on high-cost travel nurses. And we've seen what's come out of all of this. Well, we received a email from someone who wished not to be named, but says, I'm a registered nurse of 18 years with specialty education. I first started out with Eastern Health and moved to Central after 5 years. And when during that move, this person lost their seniority. She says, I worked for Central Health for 11 years, then moved back to St. John's because she had to leave her job in Central again. Lost her seniority. She says they do have a new system now where your seniority is supposed to be portable, but unfortunately, she didn't get that opportunity. So here she is, 18 years experience working in Newfoundland and applying for jobs with Eastern Health and not getting a call. She says it upsets me to know that they are paying money for travel nurses when there are Newfoundland nurses applying for jobs and not getting a call. She says it also upsets me that a nurse with 18 years experience can't get a job because of seniority rules. She says she's been working in private practice now because she can't get a job with Eastern Health, yet they are crying out for nurses. Wow. Well, that's interesting indeed. We are going to go now to the Minister of Education, Crystalline Howell, who I understand is pulled over on the side of the road in her district of St. Barb, Lanson Meadows. Hello, Crystalline.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are the roads today?
Oh, pretty good. I'm actually in central Newfoundland today, but I am literally on the side of the road.
Very good. Well, be careful out there.
We're taken to the public libraries today. We're doing a tour of the public libraries in central Newfoundland and just having a chat with the library resource folks and some of the families that will be at the centers that we make our way to, and just thinking about all the great things that are happening in these resources in our communities.
Well, indeed, such an important resource too, and a lot of them have really been struggling to keep up with demand and cost and COVID and all the rest of it. So what kind of stories are you hearing?
Oh, well, hearing that, that since COVID, there's been a lot of specific challenges that some of our libraries have been facing, and they've been able to pivot. They did a great job during a lot of the pandemic times and made their resources available online. They've been doing great work with shipping books to folks who wanted to order them online. I didn't even know that was a thing until recently, but they've been able to change gears and make sure that the resources are still getting into the hands of the people in Newfoundland and Labrador. So we're super appreciative of the hard work that they've put in, and we were pleased to be able to support some of that work with an announcement this week of an additional $600,000 in funding to continue the great work that they've been able to do.
Does it go far enough, though?
Well, every little bit helps, I guess. Yeah, we recognize that there are still challenges, and the cost of everything is ballooning right now. So they're not immune to that either. But this was something that we felt we could do immediately, money we could get out the door very quickly, get into the hands of the Libraries Board, who have been incredible stewards of the money that they've been given over the last little while. Their budget did, I think, a $13 million contribution from the provincial government every year, and they use that to the best of their abilities, and they allocate it where the resources are needed, and we're very confident that they'll take this money and be able to do the same with that.
You mentioned yesterday during your media availability that, it's important to you to be on the ground and see, these facilities firsthand and talk to the people who are involved and learn what they do and all of that sort of thing. Will that go towards future, allocations or discussions?
Certainly, all of the information that we gather in these trips and visits and site stops always informs our decision-making process. When we see something that's working really well, we know it's something that we want to continue to invest in. If there's something that's not so hot, not working out so great, then maybe that's something that needs revamping or a policy change or some, different direction for that specific issue. So all of those things are part of the conversations that we're having. We're hearing about some of the really great work that's happening here, hearing about some of the challenges that they're facing, and that'll all be part of the conversation moving forward.
And I know there's an awful lot of issues out there right now demanding a great deal of attention. Healthcare, housing, poverty, social determinants of health, mental health and addictions. These are all very important things. But on the very fundamental level, literacy is so important to, it's just one of those base fundamental issues that helps build everything here in this province. So, I mean, is it hard for libraries to get that kind of attention, given what, the many important issues that are happening today?
You know what? You make an excellent point. It's there are many challenges and a lot of things that are vying for attention and for funding. But to your point, our literacy is one of the greatest things that we can do to focus on to enhance the viability of the province. And our focus lately has been a lot on our early learning. We've got some additional funding in this batch for our early learning literacy and continuing to promote the early learning sector and how we do that. But I think then that is an excellent segue into our K-12 system, and how we support our students is largely how we build our future here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So it's been a busy week in the Department of Education. Last week we had the opportunity to sit with our teachers in our think tank and hear some of the challenges and things that they're facing in their classrooms. And they've done a great job too of pivoting during the last couple of years over the pandemic. And we understand that there are new challenges and new needs in the classrooms, and having the opportunity to sit with them and hear their stories, hear their perspectives, listen to the daily challenges that they face, and some of the intrinsic challenges that they face in doing their job was certainly a meaningful activity for us. And we were able to offer some short-term solutions and some support after those conversations. But a huge piece of the puzzle as we build a stable future here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Crystalline Howell, I do appreciate your time this morning. Safe travels.
Thank you so much. I just want to encourage anybody who's out there listening to check out your local public library. Incredible resources. And if there's anything that you need, I'm sure they're more than willing to help all families find the resources that are appropriate.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. That's Crystalline Howell, the Education Minister. We're going to go now to one of the candidates in the by-election in Ward 4 in the City of St. John's, Mr. Tom Davis. Hello.
Good morning, Linda.
Hello.
I just want to start off thanking you for stepping in. I can't imagine how it happens in the back rooms when someone's sick or someone can't vote when Patty is out of commission. So I know you oftentimes get the call. I know Tim in Ottawa gets the call. So thank you so much, because I know it's got to be a real challenge, and there's a lot of people to really miss if for some reason there was no one there to answer the call.
Appreciate that, Tom. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to send out our thoughts and prayers for Debbie Hanlon. I know she's going through a tough time, and last time I saw her was Tibbs Eve, and she was full of vim and vigor, so I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing her in that same state soon.
What a life force. I mean, she really does exude that energy, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's quite a unique entity, and again, like I say, I just hope she feels all the support from everybody, and that our healthcare system can get her back on the mend.
Absolutely.
So I want to remind residents of Ward 4 that you should be receiving your mail-in ballots, and you have to have them in the mail by March the 7th. Or you can drop them off in front of City Hall, and there's a box there. Or you can actually vote in person on March the 12th. If you're not sure whether you're registered to vote, you can go to City of St. John's and look up the voter registration portal, and if you're not registered, it'll tell you, and you can go through the process there.
Very good.
I want to thank the other candidates. It's been a great campaign so far, and respectful, and some incredible complexity brought out, and a lot of well thought through presentations made. And I hope that the councillors and the people who run the city are listening, because the residents are speaking, and obviously they're going to get to speak on March 12th as well. Important issues raised too. Yeah, and a lot of really good perspectives. So again, it's an incredible process to go through, and for people listening, I know there's negatives. Brian Moore was talking about it earlier, but we need courageous leadership now, and we need out-of-the-box thinking all around the province, but in particular in Ward 4. I want to hit on a couple of key issues. And we'll have to make it quick, because I'm up to a break and we've got a lot of people waiting. Okay, sorry. So the City of St. John's is still spending taxpayer money to fight the release of the information as it relates to St. John's Sports and Entertainment, payments they made to employees, but as well made to other parties, most likely including the owners of the Growlers. That should be public information, and that needs to be put out there. We also have GoBus, which is a mainline company, but the city has bought the buses. GoBus doesn't maintain their own buses. They send it out to be maintained, and they're headquartered in Mount Pearl, and I think that's another area we need to investigate. But again, for anybody who's interested, please, you can reach out to me anytime through tomdavisnl.com. Anyway, have a great day, Linda, and good luck with the rest of your show. All right, thank you, Tom, and all the best to you and the candidates in the Ward 4 by-election. Thank you. Okay, take care, everyone. All right, bye-bye. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we hope to hear from you. And we are back, and we're going to go now to Alistair Hann. Hello, Alistair.
Good morning, Linda.
Good morning. Sorry for the wait.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for bugging you 2 mornings in a row. Linda, what I called about this morning was I've heard a lot of talk about management of the redfish in the Gulf and so on, and there's been quite a debate on how they're going to share it up, who's going to get it, and so on. And I've got a feeling that the deal is going to be done. It's probably been done once under the table, and I got a feeling it's going to happen again. But anyway, Linda, as far as the management, what decimated the Gulf for redfish, that's the previous stock when it was healthy, was the introduction of midwater trawl. Now, midwater trawl came on. Before that, you could only fish redfish during the daylight hours, because redfish has got a habit of leaving the bottom and coming up in the water at nighttime. So therefore, the regular old bottom trawler couldn't catch the fish during the nighttime. And we had a captain in Burgeo who lobbied and lobbied hard that if this didn't stop, that the redfish would be decimated. But anyway, it continued, and the chief biologist, or I think he was the chief at that time, was a guy by the name of Sandyman. And he came to Burgeo and seen this skipper about his lobbying and so on. In fact, I'm not sure that he didn't make a trip in the Gulf with him. But anyway, the practice continued, and Sandyman was contending and promoting at that time that the amount of redfish in the Gulf could not be caught, that the mortality rate was greater than the catch rate. So, Linda, if they carry on with that kind of science and with that kind of thought, well, the redfish won't be back very long after it opens. Now, another thing I would like to say is they're trying to figure out which way they should divvy it up. Well, I would like to say this. Why don't they divvy up the redfish the same way they did the halibut on Burgeo Bank? There's been an influx of halibut on Burgeo Bank in the past few years. Could the fishermen from Burgeo, Ramya, go and fish that halibut? No, because they didn't have any historical attachment. Well, who had the historical attachment? Fishermen from Sambro, Nova Scotia. And they've took tons and tons of halibut off Burgeo Bank in the last couple of winters, Linda. And, you know, Burgeo was a big town, and now it's a dying town. And it don't make you feel good to see those kind of things happen.
So what happened to the principle of adjacency?
Of historical attachment, they'll find that it will lead them right back to Burgeo, Ramia, and Galthouse. It won't lead them to Prince Edward Island. It won't lead them to New Brunswick. Now, I'm making those accusations, Linda, and anybody is free to see if those accusations are right.
I asked what happened to the principle of adjacency?
Well, I don't know if there ever was a principle of that, maybe on paper. But I'm telling you, you can follow what I'm saying this morning. And out on Burgeo Bank, and I would even go so far as to predict, if you check right now, you will see boats from Nova Scotia fishing. I'm going to say about 20 miles off from Burgeo. They're close enough that if they have bad weather, they would seek shelter in Ramia. But, of course, the fishermen from Burgeo can only catch, I don't know what it is, but I know they catch it in a day or so, the amount of halibut that they're allowed to catch. When they go to their union and try to get a bigger quota, you don't have any historical attachment. No, they don't have any historical attachment. But they're practically sitting on top of the halibut, but they can't have it. Now, I compare that to the Gulf fleet, which really don't have that much historical attachment, I guarantee you. And certainly they want to catch it, and no one can blame them for that. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to use your principles for one fish, use it for the other one. And you will find if they check that historical attachment of Burgeo, Ramia, and Galthouse to the Gulf of St. Lawrence redfish, it'll lead them right by the nose back to Burgeo, Ramia, and Galthouse again.
Alistair, I appreciate your call this morning. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye. We're going to go now to the MHA for Grand Falls Windsor Buckins. Mr. Chris Tibbs, hello.
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thank you very much for taking my call today. I wanted to talk about our nurses that have been disrespected in this province for quite some time now. At the essence, Linda, with the problem that we have in our healthcare system is that we are listening to the wrong people, and I've been saying this since day one. This is the way I felt. The Premier of the province has said that we all need to. We won't be able to solve the problems in healthcare using the thinking that created them in the first place. But I don't think that goes far enough, Linda. I really believe that we will not solve the problems with the thinking organizations and institutions that got us in this mess that we find ourselves in today, where our healthcare workers have felt so disrespected over the past couple of years. So within the system, Linda, who should we be listening to? And I think that's the problem. And I think that's where we need to find our solutions. The frontline workers who go to work every single day and deliver clinical care in our collapsing system, the workers that grind it out shift after shift, do the best for their patients. They are the ones that we should be listening to, Linda. They are the ones that put in the blood, sweat, and tears every single day. And those are the only ones that should have the moral high ground to comment on any of this, because those are the ones that put it on the line every day, Linda. Nobody knows what our healthcare workers go through and what they need other than them. Those are the best people to be talking to. And until we do that, Linda, we're not going to turn the ship around.
And, of course, the issues that were raised in that Globe and Mail article, which relied heavily, of course, on ATIP information received, a lot of those issues are the ones that the Nurses Union have been talking about for ages now.
For ages, Linda, and Linda, if we are to be honest, They've been telling the powers that be, like you just said, about the problems that we have right now in healthcare and what need to be done about them for years. It's not just the authority, the right people in government that should be listening. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians across this island, we need our healthcare workers. We need them to be happy. We need them to be safe, and we need to ensure they're going to stay here. Our elected officials need to get on the ground and see what's happening. I invited Tom Osborne out here about a year ago, and to his credit, he did come out. But what has happened since? I brought him through our emergency room. I wanted him to be on the ground with those people that matter and to talk to them, and nothing has changed. And if I can remind people, Linda, of, we have so many closures and outlying communities, stuff like that gets sent here to Grand Falls, Windsor. This is the contingency plan. And on December 14th, 2022, I wrote Minister Osborne and the government a letter begging for help here, requesting that we get the help we need. If something happens to the Grand Falls Windsor Hospital here and their clinical teams, there is no contingency plan. This is it. This is the Alamo. This is the backstop for so many communities throughout central Newfoundland and Labrador. And if this fails, if this collapses, Linda, can you imagine how much trouble we're going to be in? And I've been telling this to the government for many, many years now. And I'll just, again, remind everybody that we have so many good people working, men and women, in healthcare that hold titles such as doctors and nurses, but these are our mothers and fathers, our brothers and sisters, our friends, our neighbors, Linda. These are the people we need to be taking care of. And until we do that, until we talk to them personally, we will not turn this ship around. And I just fear for the future of central Newfoundland and Labrador. We have some great people that are holding the ground right now. They are holding on. They are absolutely at their wits' end. I talk to them on a daily basis. And until this government puts down the arrogance and says, you know what, this government does not have all the answers. Where are the answers? The answers are in those nooks and crannies of those good people that are taking care of the patients on the ground today.
Chris Tibbs, thanks for your call this morning.
I appreciate everything, Linda, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're up to news time now with Brian Medora. You're listening to VOCM Open Line. Into the last half hour of the program, now is your opportunity to give us a call.
Nutrition, exercise, keeping the cold at bay. Whatever keeps you feeling great, the Wellness and Healthy Lifestyle Show on your VOCM.
And we're back. We're going now to Peter Leonard. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Linda.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
That's good.
Linda, I'd just like to pick up there where Alistair was too from Burgeo there and the halibut situation. You know, the same thing was done in 3PS and like there in 3PN, but on St. Pierre Bank and in the gullies, and people were out there from Fortune, Grand Bank, Bjorn, those places. And other places, but that's three major ones. And they were basically making a living catching halibut. And we had a bycatch for, excuse me, apologize. All that was taken. We even got Nova Scotians over here doing the surveys, sitting just for see what the stock is like healthy. But, anyway, I'd just like to add to that, and it sounded like the man knew what he was talking about, but it's 100% true. And I'd just like to say I turned on CBC radio yesterday evening, and I heard Greg Priddy's voice there, and he was saying something about redfish, and he said something about looking for a formula for crab pricing formula, and something else. Oh, yeah, EI. So I just going to turn it off because I thought it was an old news clip from 2023. Because, but he's still singing the same song, and I don't think he get much to show for it. And the amount of redfish that Newfoundland is going to get now is going to be limited because, like, Union is always finds out. The fishermen knows what's going on before the Union finds out, and that's unfortunate. And after Earl McCurdy left as president, well, Keith Sullivan come on stream there now, and things started sliding in the FFAW, in my opinion, and a good many others. But anyway, we'll stick to mine. But and now FFAW is at rock bottom. and you've heard that term, and everybody else used that term loosely over the years, and you know what happens when you get to rock bottom. Either you change, or either that the outcome is just fatal. So, I just believe that, the FFAW is at rock bottom. I don't think...
So what needs to happen then?
What should
you just said, you just said what happens when things hit rock bottom. But what does the FFAW need to do?
Well, I think the Inshore Council and the executive needs to remove the paid executive from their positions because it's going nowhere. And like the pricing formula, we've heard that so long and so often, and it hasn't gone anywhere really. But I'll just say this to you. I'll just say this to the fishermen in Newfoundland and Labrador. Who would you rather go into negotiations with on pricing in 2024? Would you rather go in if Derek Butler was leading it? Or would you rather go in if Jeff Floater was leading it? Or would you rather go in if Greg Pretty was leading? And I think I know the answer to that. But, there's no change and no pain, no gain. And fish harvesters in Newfoundland and Labrador, Linda, are after having enough of pain. Thank you for that. You enjoy the rest of your show.
All right, Peter, thank you. Bye-bye. We're going to go now to the Minister of Immigration, Population Growth and Skills. He also happens to be the MHA for Corner Brook District, Jerry Byrne. Hello.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on, Linda.
No trouble. So we've been talking a lot about redfish.
Yeah, and so we should. This is an issue that's an absolute preoccupation priority of the provincial government of Newfoundland and Labrador, because I'll put it to you this way, Linda. If I were to go into the West Coast, Northern Peninsula, Southwest Coast area of Newfoundland and Labrador and Southern Labrador and say to people, I am here to announce a particular initiative which will create 600 plus jobs, generate $200 million a year for the local economy, and will be sustainable for decades to come. I don't think that would be poorly received at all. Well, that's what the redfish file, the redfish decision, the redfish resource means to the west coast of Newfoundland, to the northern peninsula, to the southwest coast, and to southern Labrador. It is our future. And, I can't put it any plainer and simpler than that. It's tough enough. When you lose one, you lose it. If you don't have the basis to win an argument and you lose the argument, you take it on the chin and you look for another day. But when you win one, but you still lose it, it's really tough to take. And that's what redfish means to me, is that this is a situation where we are totally in the competitive advantaged position. We have the boats, we have the people, we have the plants, we have conservation policy and principles on our side, we have historic access on our side, we have indigenous reconciliation principles on our side. We should be winning this one. This is the one we win, but yet once again, Ottawa tells us, you can't win one. You're going to lose it. So you're just going to have to take it. I do not accept that, Linda. I do not accept that.
So yesterday we heard from Eddie Joyce, who said, where's the Premier on this? Because
front and center. I'm going to stop you.
Okay.
I'm going to stop you, not you, but I'm going to stop anyone who wants to make this about a domestic dispute, because this is what trips us up every time. Someone will try to take a united position of Newfoundland and Labrador, as you heard from Jason Spiegel, as you heard from the harvesters who've come on Openline, as you've heard from everybody. We have a united position on this one, and that is our strength. Someone will always want to come along and try to create a domestic issue. divide us domestically within the province, divide that coalition, divide that initiative, so that because our success becomes what they perceive to be their failure. That's not going to happen in this case. The Premier is all over this. There were 3 provincial cabinet ministers that attended a demonstration, a information session in Corner Brook a few weeks ago. I was one of them. The Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture was one of them. The Minister from the Northern Peninsula, Krista Howell, was one of them. There was one person who was not there, the member for Humber Bay of Islands. So, listen, join the team, get with this, be united. Let's win this and put forward a common front to Ottawa as the FFAW, as harvesters, as those in the processing industry are prepared to do. We can do this if we stay united. Don't divide. The Premier is 100% on this, on the importance of this issue and fighting for Newfoundland and Labrador on this issue. Don't try to divide.
So what kind of representation is being made then? I mean, what can we expect?
Well, we are front and center dealing with our federal cabinet ministers. We said out loud, all of us said, gee, Newfoundland and Labrador, first time in a very, very long time, 2 federal cabinet ministers from this province appointed to the Trudeau administration's cabinet. They're our linchpin to this. The MPs are our linchpin to all of this. Dealing directly with the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans is a linchpin in all of this. Getting to the word out to not-for-profit, to environmental governmental organizations is a linchpin to all of this. Why? Because we're supposed to have learned something, all of us collectively. We're supposed to have learned something from the collapse of the groundfish resource, the largest, most historic, most significant protein source on the planet, some will argue. We lost it when northern cod closed and the groundfish resource closed. That was 30 years ago. What have we learned? Have we learned anything? Are we prepared to make it any better? Well, the answer is very telling. And this is why redfish is so important. In addition to the economic impact of redfish, why this is so important is because it demonstrates to us that Ottawa, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, is morally and intellectually bankrupt. They are prescribing a brand new resource, allocation of a resource, when boats and people and plants already exist to be able to prosecute this fishery and to do so in a conservation-minded, a conservation-first priority. What are they suggesting? What are they saying? What have they actually decided? No. Let's not use the existing capacity. Let's create more capacity, and let's apply taxpayers' money to generate more capacity in places as far away from the resources you can possibly imagine, as far away as the Bay of Fundy off of it, on the southern slopes of Nova Scotia. Let's actually build more capacity, and with that comes what we learned and should have understood, the irresistible, insatiable appetite that comes when you overcapitalize a fishery. You create an insatiable appetite for more and more and more fish. That's what happened when offshore draggers entered the northern cod fishery. It just became insatiable. You had to feed the economics of that fleet, not the needs of the resource. That's where this is so serious.
And watch what happens to the resource.
100%. When there are people in the Bay of Islands, fishers, indigenous fishers, who have been, depending on this resource, the groundfish resources from what I call the pond of the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Regengage called it the river. I call it the pond of the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Where now factory freezer trawlers will be allowed to re-enter when 64 11-foot boats, inshore boats, will be tied up. Some of them will be looking for, through no fault of their own, through economic necessity, they'll be looking for government to provide them some sort of dignified way out of the fishery. While, at the same time, while taxpayers will be asked to grant fishers a dignified exit to the fishery, offshore companies will be plying offshore factory freezer trawlers in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. It just, I pause and I just got to take a deep breath and say, what the heck is going on?
Jerry Byrne, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. God love.
Bye-bye. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Fisheries Minister Elvis Lovelace is in the lineup. We'll speak with him and hopefully you. And we are back. We're going now to the Minister of Fisheries, Elvis Lovelace. Hello, Elvis.
Hello, Linda. How are you? And listen, first of all, let me congratulate you on your many years of experience. So I'm not going. I heard you earlier. Oh, you told how long I've been here, but many years of experience, and we thank you for that. And you've done a phenomenal job in those many years.
Been talking to you a long time, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Linda, I know you are getting near the end of your program, and let me just listening to Jerry and his certainly his passion from his history in politics, and not only that, just as MHA, his area is affected by this quite strong, I guess, if that's the right word, and Jerry in his conviction in terms of MHA always first in representing his area and listening to his harvesters on the west coast of the island, and certainly the Great Northern Peninsula, and Minister Howell, as well, as he had alluded to, was at the rally, and a united voice, and I think that's important. I think that was a common word that was used in his discussion with you just a few minutes ago about the united position. So, Linda, if I can just add to, I guess, some of this, what has transpired in the past and where our disappointment is, and the fact that, yes, we have been loud and clear to the federal government. The Premier has, and Jerry Byrne has, myself. And here, if I can give just a little bit brief comments on what transpired when the minister was appointed to the position as federal fisheries minister, recognizing that it's a big challenge coming from Quebec as well. So I wrote to her right away and stressing in terms of redfish, and this is not just about redfish. Let me make it clear. This is about every species that provides economic development, employment for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So let me make that clear that we have a strong voice not just on redfish but on every species. And I mean, when she was appointed to the department, certainly made it known that the redfish quota allocations need to and should consider, and as has been said before, Newfoundland and Labrador's historical attachment to the fishery, the long principle of adjacency, and certainly reconciliations with Indigenous peoples. So I wrote to the minister and was waiting for a meeting with her face to face, and I did get that before Christmas. Met with her, what I perceived as a very good meeting, where we talked about sustainability of rural communities, and I was very impressed by those words because it was relative to how here in the province and myself as a MHA that represents rural districts. But I reminded the minister, I said, in order for this to happen, you talk about sustainability for rural communities, but in order for that to happen, I repeated it 3 times in the meeting, that in order to do that, we have to have, Newfoundland and Labrador has to have our fair share. And that's not just redfish, it's crab, halibut, whatever the case may be. That's how we're going to support and sustain these rural communities. She agreed absolutely 100%. Then just not very long, I think it was a day or two after the fact, this decision was made when it seems like, wow, nothing that was in the meeting that was said was listened to based on that decision. So that smacked us in the face of, obviously they didn't listen to our message, and that was very unfortunate. So anyways, you don't drop the ball then. So I attended a rally, as was mentioned, with FFAW in Corner Brook. Minister Byrne was there, Minister Howell. The message was loud and clear. And Linda, the thing about it is I spoke to some harvesters, and when harvesters tell you that, this redfish fishery was hoping to be a lifeblood for them, especially those that were face a reduction in the shrimp quota, was a lifeblood for them. But this was just an insult, as they put it. And to hear harvesters say that my boat is tied up by the wharf and I'm just waiting for the bank to come and get it. Now that gets real. That's real examples of what this decision is doing to these harvesters on the west coast, in particular in the Great Northern Peninsula part of this island. So then I wrote the minister again and reiterating the importance of reconsidering more allocation for Newfoundland and Labrador. And a few days later, I met with her again and with my Atlantic ministers of fisheries, with a united voice. And I would say all of us were united in our disappointment in her decision. So that meeting took place, and since that time, Linda, I'm writing the minister again. The Premier and I met with harvesters only last week on the West Coast, discussed many issues, including redfish. I met with FFAW again with Greg Priddy and some union members to discuss very important issues other than redfish as well, but redfish was certainly included. And I believe there's a united voice moving forward, and I will be attending the Boston Seafood Show, and the federal minister will be there, and we've requested to meet with her, and I'm going to meet with her to reiterate again the disappointment in this decision that was made, and that we need something different to be made, the decision to be made by the federal government. And Linda, if I can add, in terms of, okay, you asked what questions, what options are, where do we go, where do we move forward? So your listeners can understand that there's a Redfish Advisory Committee that's struck. Very important group.
And we have a minute left.
Okay, very important discussion because there was a $25,000 TAC associated with this. We're asking for more. The minister hasn't ruled out that there won't be more. So I'm going to be meeting with the minister to press on that. I hate to be rushed, but I understand. I respect your time there as well. And I've spoken with Minister Goody Hutchings as well, and she was not happy with it, and she's been pressing the minister for other options. What those options are, I don't know at this point, but we'll be pushing for more. And what's going to come from that Redfish Advisory Committee is going to determine where it will go. $25,000 minimum, and where it's going to go, we don't know at this point. But we'll be pushing for more so that we can get fairness for Newfoundland and Labrador. And let me say an end to all harvesters in this province that this is not just about redfish. This is about all species, and we'll be pushing Ottawa for our fair share for Newfoundland and Labrador. And Linda, I thank you for your time.
Fisheries Minister Elvis Lovelace, thank you.
All the best.
All right. Bye-bye. And he's had the last word on VOCM Open Line this morning. Thanks for everyone for your contributions. Appreciate hearing all the perspectives laid out there today. We will be back tomorrow, whether it's me or Patty. I'm not sure yet. But regardless, Richard Duggan will be hosting News Talk this afternoon. And stay tuned now for News at Noon with Brian Medore.